challenges just to disperse money for students who benefited from the promised free education. Where is that before we talk about next year?
Okay, well, look, that was why I was appointed as administrator, because for up to 8 months, most students remain unfunded, and that created serious problems on our campuses. And since my appointment on the 21st of August, I'm happy to report that we've dispersed 3.6 billion rand directly from NSFAS, and a further 10 billion rand was unlocked at university and institutions. So we've by and large cleared out the backlog, and students are writing exams and do the things that students are supposed to be doing, studying. And so we're very pleased with the eradication or the wiping out of administrative backlogs. That places us in a very good position to begin to plan properly for the 2019 application season.
So explain to us this free higher education. So some loans were converted to grants. What is the situation now for those families earning below the threshold, 350,000 rand? So they qualify for grants now, not loans.
So that, yeah, so the 2018 and onwards, students that do qualify and meet the correct criteria will be fully funded for their studies, and that means their tuition will be funded, the residence will be funded, and they will have food allowances, and in some cases travel allowances, and also book allowances. So it's a fully funded student for those that qualify. So parents that earn under 350,000, or households under 350,000 per year, will qualify on economic grounds. Then also, what's often not understood is that people on social grants, orphans and foster care children, people in our SASA households, they qualify on the social criteria, so they don't need to qualify on the economic criteria. So once you qualify for that, then you make an application to NSFAS, and once you register at university, you then become funded.
All right, so you're calling for applications. What do applicants have to do?
Well, they have to go onto our website, which is very easy. We tested that with high school students. And then they will be required to upload certain documents. First of all, a consent form from the parent so that we can verify the income. And then secondly, of course, the identity documents of both the applicant and his parents or foster parents, if that is the case. And then, of course, a validation or pay slip from the parent. Now, in the case where the parent do not work, or the person that the guardian of the ward do not work, then or is unemployed, and of course they won't have a pay slip, and then that is not necessary. But what we do is, upon application, we validate the application, we check for the forms, and if you didn't fully complete it, we will then contact you. But you will then be considered to be an applicant.
Doctor, you've made it very clear that those 350,000, below that threshold, the families earning that much, education is now completely free. But there has been concern about the gap students, anyone with a family income below 600,000 rand. It's still very difficult to fund an education. What sort of support is there for them?
Well, look, that is a real concern for everybody, because you know, it's very tough to fund children in that particular gap that you've described. But we do have other funded programs. The Funza Lusaka, it's for teachers, and there you simply have to qualify at the university to be entering the teaching program. I should stress also TVETs also. And then we are also administering funds on behalf of the CETAs. So what we are doing is we are certainly going to be increasingly looking for fundraising in that particular, to fund that particular category of students, because it is a real problem. There's no denying it. What we also found, and this is a very interesting statistic, is that funded students do much better than students that are not funded. And that means that funded students, when they relieve from the burden of having to worry where the next meal is coming from, can actually focus on their studies. So it's indeed a very positive development.
All right, so we're moving towards that. What about the question of your funding? Your burden has gone up. There was already the problem of debtors not paying back. How are the finances of NSFAS looking right now?
NSFAS's finances are very healthy because we fund it over the medium term, and so our funding is secured over a medium term framework. And so we do have funding for the next 3 years, and we can meet our obligations. We are recovering debt still from old students, but we can comfortably meet the uptake of the NSFAS demand, should I say.
So can we envisage any problems next year, or will the fee-free students actually receive their grants on time this time around?
So what we've done is we've invested an enormous amount of energy and time now that we've cleared out the backlog to plan for 2019. So our application process is going extremely well. We have over 200,000 new students that applied. Of course, students that are returning don't have to apply. And we are going to step up efforts, especially into the rural areas for the remainder of this month up till the due date ends at the end of November. We are also working very hard with the institutions to make sure that our data is aligned, that we get the necessary information from the institutions, so that we make sure that when people do register, our funding can then be released to institutions to pay over to students. And in some cases, we'll be paying some students directly. So we are working extremely hard to have a very smooth start to this year, because we cannot have a repeat of what we had this year and last year.
All right, thank you very much,
very
Dr.
confident.
Randall Carolissen, live from our studio in Sea Point, saying there won't be the same problems we saw this year when, remember, students that were promised fee-free education, they didn't have to pay back their loans to NSFAS, they would receive grants, weren't in fact paid. There was a huge backlog by the middle of the year, but NSFAS now saying that backlog has been dealt with and they're ready for next year, dealing with the influx of students who will be eligible for fee-free education.